Hi, welcome to the video. So in this video, I'm going to explain my new web project built using Angular and Java Spring Boot. So I will explain the complete project and how the backend and front end is working. So I will explain the complete functionalities. So please see the complete video. So basically, this is the landing page of my project. And if you see, it is showing a list of the employees, the names, the last names, email ID, and some actions buttons are there. So let me show you how this list it is fetching from the backend and how it is showing in the front end. So basically in Angular, there is a main HTML file that is called index.html. So here you can see the title is mentioned, which it is showing in the title bar. Now nothing more is there, then how it is showing this list. So let me show you. In the app routing module.ts in Angular, I have mapped the default path that if the path is null, then it will redirect to the employees path. Okay, it will redirect to the employees component. Okay, so if you remove that employees also, then also it will by default it will redirect to employees only. And what's happening in the employee, if you go to the employee service.ts, here in that list, if you check the path employee, it basically redirects to the component employee list component. And now if you go to the employee list and if you go to the HTML file, then you can see the HTML code is coded here and it is basically showing these details in the front end only. Okay, so now you know how it is fetching the list. So I have shown you the front end. That so if you go to the employee list component.ts, you will be able to see that it is basically calling this get employee list API from the backend. And if I show you the backend which I have built using the Spring Boot, in the get all employee, I'm using the find all function of the Spring Boot, which is basically returning the entire list present in the DB, and it is showing in the front end. So that is how it is returning the complete list. So now let me show you this update, delete and view functionality. But first let me show you the add employee functionality. So if you click on the add employee, here you can see it is opening that create employee path and a new form is opened. And let me show you the route for it. So if you go to the routing, here create employee is mapped with create employee component. So there is a basically different components for each of these actions, and the default component is employee list component. So now if you go to the create employee and if you see the HTML, here you will be able to see that a form is there. And if you go to the ts employee component.ts, here you will be able to see one API I'm calling, that is save employee, which is basically saving the data. So first let me show you the functionality, then I will show you the how it is working. So let me actually show you in the save employee, like on submit in the save employee function, it is calling the create employee, and this create employee is basically the API which it is calling, and it is saving the data in the DP. So now if you go to the Spring Boot, and here you will be able to find that create employee method, where I'm using the save method of Spring Boot to save the employee data, and it is saving the DP with this method. So basically in this way it is working. Now if I show you the delete functionality, so if you just click on delete, see it is vanished. So in the delete function also, I'm calling it basically from the employee list component. So if I show you the delete button, uh, here you can see it is calling basically delete employee API, and also it is passing that employee ID as a parameter. Okay, so in the backend, if I show you, so here is the delete employee method is mentioned. Also I'm passing the path variable long ID, and I'm returning a response entity with a string and boolean map. In the map I'm basically putting a message and the response, which is success or failed basically. So basically I'm using the delete method of Spring Boot to delete the employee from that list, and I'm storing the response in that response variable, which is basically a map, and I'm returning that response entity. Okay, so that is how the delete functionality is working. Now if I show you the update functionality, Let me show you that if I click on update, it is same, it is opening a new form. So in the employee list, if you go to that HTML code and if you check that update button, it is basically calling the update employee and passing the employee ID. Oh shit, I made it. So it is basically calling the update employee. But first, if you go to the app routing module.ts and if you see that update employee slash id, it is basically redirect to the update employee component. And if you go to that update employee component and if you check the code in the ts file, so here you will be able to see it is first getting the employee, get employee by id, and then on submit it is calling the update employee method and passing the id and the employee object. And this API is basically it is basically hitting this update employee API from the backend, and after hitting the API, this is redirect to the employee list page. Okay, so in the backend I will also show you. So if you check the update employee function, it is basically the path variable I have passed as id, and the employee details I have also passed, which is basically object of employee class. So it is basically finding that employee with that id provided, and it is setting that first name, last name and email which we have provided in that form, and then it is calling the save method of Spring Boot, and it is saving that entity into the database, and at last it is returning the response as okay, that is success. So that's how the update is working. Now let me show you the functionality. If I'm changing it as, let's say it's Ravi Raj and the email id as raj@gmail.com, I click on submit. So here you can see it is changed. Okay. And the last functionality is the view functionality. So if I click on view, it will basically show you the details of that employee, the first name, last name and email id. So for view employee details also a component is there, that is employee details, and in the HTML code you'll be able to show that I have only mentioned first name, last name and email id. And if you go to the, and this employee dot first name, this is basically it is fetching from that employee object and the first name, last name and email id. And if you go to the ts file, in the ts file it is basically using the same method, that is get employee by id, and it is passing that id as a parameter, and it is calling that API, that is get employee by id, and same it is showing as the like get list. And basically this, only the format is different from that fetching list. So that's the thing. And if you go to the employee list page, yeah, so that's the complete functionality of this web page. And basically I have implemented the CRUD operations, which is create, retrieve, update and delete. That is create, you can use this add employee button to create, you can use this update button to update, you can click on the view to retrieve the information of any of the employee, and you can click delete to delete that employee object from the database. Okay, so basically I've shown you from the front-end part. If I show you db as a proof, now you can see Ariana Hester is the last. Let me show you the db also. You can see Ariana Hester is the last name. The first Ariana Hester is the last employee. Okay, and so if I click and go on the front end, and if I click on delete, it's deleted from here. And if I click on the refresh button, see it is deleted from here also. And if I click on new add employee, and if I add, click on submit, it is added here. And let me refresh the db also, so it is added here also with the id 11. So this is the complete functionality of this project. So I've started learning Angular, so I've learned the basics and I've created this web project with some help from the YouTube. So please let me know if you have any advice or anything you want to comment about this project. I'll be more than happy to hear that. Thank you for watching the video.